I'm going to pass it over to Sebastian. We're going to kind of talk about why should brands outside of the obvious be excited for TikTok. So Sebastian, take it away.
So obviously I work at TikTok, so that's a good reason just to start. But I think the number one reason why, well, just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I was at Google for 5 years prior to coming on board at TikTok. And I was on a team called the International Growth Team. So we were helping some of the largest brands actually expand into international markets. So Latin America, EMEA, APAC. And it was actually really amazing, fulfilling work. And one of the projects that I was tasked with during my time was to do a bit of competitive intel on Meta, on TikTok, on a few other brands. And when I started doing the competitive intel on TikTok, I was blown away by some of the metrics and some of the stats that I was seeing in terms of how much time folks were spending on the app. And a big part of what I was selling at the time was YouTube. And anyway, long story short, I became really excited. I had a friend that went over there and he's the one who got me to come onto TikTok, but I had already known so much about it from doing that competitive intel. And so as you can see from what's on the slide here, when you compare it to some of the other social media, a little fast. When you compare it to some of the other social media apps that exist, some of the other video platforms, TikTok has nearly 2 hours. People spend on average 2 hours a day on TikTok, just watching it. And so for your brand to have that kind of face time, I think it's really impactful. People open the app 16 times a day. I actually had to delete it off my phone during the work week just to make sure that I'm not doing that same thing. 300 billion monthly views. That's incredible. And so that's a big reason why folks should be on TikTok. That's where people are watching.
I know it's like the modern day TV, right? And I think that's like a big thing that we're seeing right now, that yes, it's in the social landscape, but it's really an entertainment platform versus like a conversation platform. And I think that's something that's super exciting and why these numbers even are what they are.
Yeah. And if you go to the next slide, there's, in terms of that time and attention that you just mentioned, and this is something that you and I were speaking about just before this, there are folks, when they compare it to other platforms, they're saying this is more entertaining than Netflix, than YouTube. They're spending how many times have you guys been like, oh, well, I don't have time to watch a movie, but maybe I can watch 5 episodes of The Office, right? I do that all the time. Now, instead of watching a movie, maybe I watch 100 different TikTok videos, but you're spending that same amount of time on TikTok. And what's happening is, as much as we would like it to be true, there are still limited hours in the day. And so it's not, I'm adding this to the time I have to entertain myself. I am actually replacing some of those other intake forms in terms of video and replacing that with TikTok, right? So instead of watching TV, instead of watching Netflix, instead of watching YouTube, I'm spending that time on TikTok. And so if you think about where the market is trending, that's a big reason why brands should continue to be excited about what's happening here. Okay. Marketers. Yeah, we're all marketers in the room. Yes. Okay. Obviously thinking about the funnel, right? If we want to understand why, actually you mentioned I might have some slightly better stats. That is true. This is some of the most recent data that we have on some of our user base, right? So if you think about top of the funnel, discovery, 60% of folks are discovering new brands on the platform. If you think about the consideration portion of it, they are immediately seeing something on TikTok and then purchasing something. And then ultimately when it comes to action, right? And this is for all brands. So obviously this encompasses purchasing products, but maybe it's app installs. Maybe it is form fills for you lead gen folks out there, which we will touch on later. More than half of folks are actually taking action at that lower part of the funnel. I think that there's this general misconception in terms of TikTok just being a pure branding awareness play. And it's just not true. And I think that's, it's something to be excited about because, part of what happens in marketing is unless you have the absolute best #1 product, where you see that competitive advantage is really just in being first to market. And so while people still believe that this is true, maybe it's just a branding play. The brands that we see that have the most success are the ones that are taking their marketing dollars and working with incredible agencies like yourself and like figuring out like, how do we measure, how do we brand, how do we like then move down the funnel in order to take action. So yeah.
And it's a lot of topics we're also going to walk everybody here through and have some deeper conversations about. But I think, so far it's there's obvious reasons to be excited about TikTok, and that's where the eyeballs are. And of course, as marketers, we don't just take that holistic awareness, eyeballs awareness. The exciting thing about TikTok is people are going there with purchase intent. And so we get to capitalize on that with the right strategy. And so I think the next thing we'll talk about before I kick it to Sebastian is kind of a question on the audience. Where I think a lot of times we hear about, I'm going to set this up because I think this shocked me a little bit, but we constantly are hearing, I'm going to use TikTok to diversify my audience and go after the younger demographic. That is a big thing we hear all the time. And I think, leading up to that, I think on the next slide, and I'll hand it to Sebastian as we change the slide, but I think that slide was a little shocking to me and something we should all think about how do we position TikTok in our marketing mix?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, 159 million Americans. That is 1 out of every 2 people, maybe not in this room, but certainly 1 out of every 2 people. You walk down New York City streets, half of those people are on TikTok and half of those people are not children, right? Now, what you see here are some of the metrics behind who the makeup of our user base is, right? Certainly that younger demographic, for those of you, I actually just had a conversation earlier today with someone about, they have a lacrosse app and they want to start capturing some folks that are in that younger demographic. Certainly an option, but 75% of our audience does not fit within that younger category, right? So it's folks that are actually purchasing products. Like a huge component of our user base is our millennials, our Gen Xers, our boomers as well. So anywhere that you want to be, that's TikTok, right? They're spending a movie's worth of time watching on TikTok. So if you're not advertising there, one of your competitors is.
Yeah, and also the CEO of TikTok came out today, gave some good stat numbers, but also mentioned not only is the audience there, but there's about 5 million small and medium-sized businesses that have a presence on TikTok. So I think that stat is very interesting because, yes, we talk about marketing, but let's talk about brands as a whole. Like if your brand is not one of those 5 million, small business audience, brands out there, you're kind of going to be left behind by competition that is out of sight, out of mind. And so whether it's through paid or organic, building a TikTok strategy is very important, I think, for brand success moving forward with this app.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that you and I were talking about, right? This slide, because I think that there is it's like a very easy like through line when you're like having the conversations with your CFO or with your CMO around like, how do we position TikTok? Where do we find the budget for it? Just like to stick it into like the social bucket. And one of the reasons that we don't think that that's always the best option is if you think about like TikTok as an ad channel, it is like a separate ad channel, right? And so you can see here from like, this is an unduplicated audience. It's like a fancy word for saying like, if this person is on this app, are they also on this app? Now, YouTube, it's huge, right? Everyone in the world uses YouTube. I came from Google. I know the actual statistic. Everyone uses it. But if you look at like, where we get bucketed into, right? It's like Facebook, it's Instagram. Half of the audience that is on TikTok is actually not even on those apps. So it's not only like a new platform, it's somewhere that might not even be the best comp for TikTok when you think about like where those marketing dollars should go. And so another really compelling reason for brands, for agencies, for advertisers to be really excited about opening up this new place to advertise. Yeah,
I love that. And I think before we move on, there's 2 ways to think about this as brands. So one is incremental reach and reaching unique people. Now, of course, though, we don't have necessarily the ability yet to target people that are just on a certain platform. So the other way to think about that is to embrace the audience overlap between platforms and think of it as a frequency play. So like, a lot of times us as marketers, brands, we're so caught up in what we do that we think about the intricacies of the campaign and where it's coming from and the dollars and how it's spliced and diced on the back end. Users, though, they see an ad for a brand on TikTok. They see the same ad for the brand on Facebook. Maybe the messaging is tailored, but that in itself, even though there's a little, you have to be uncomfortable with the unknown. There is something to be said that yes, there is this incredible unique audience, but what about the people that are not unique? And that's where your brand should really look to, embrace that overlap instead of fearing from it a little bit.
Absolutely. You're anticipating some of my slides, actually. Kind of annoying, huh? No, yeah. Anyway, yes. Okay, how to position your brand for success on TikTok. This is the part we all came for, right? We love this. Yeah, I don't know. Are there specific questions you want to ask me around this?
No, I think, actually, yes, I think so. All right. All right. So for everybody out there, right? So we talked about all this amazing stuff. We should all be on TikTok. So what type of brands? Is there any brands that shouldn't be on TikTok, or what do you think about that?
Well, I'm not going to say yes. No, there are. Okay, everyone should be on TikTok. I just showed you the slide on 169 million people on TikTok. 1 out of every 2 people on TikTok. Of course, every brand should be on there. Now, that being said, as some of you may have found, depending on which vertical you're in, what kind of brands that you work with, sometimes it's more difficult to advertise on certain ad platforms versus others, right? But the reason why it makes sense for almost every single brand to be on TikTok is if you think about like the total media landscape, right? Yeah, you can go ahead and click through the last one. That's fine. So if you think about the entire US media landscape, TV, YouTube, Google, Twitter, Snapchat, all of that stuff, you want to be in the line of sight of where people are spending their time as marketers. The second layer to that, think about how you actually watch stuff, right? I was flying into New York. I've been running around all day. I've been on my phone mostly. I haven't had the chance to sit down, pull up my laptop, try and connect to my hotspot, right? So it's 33% of all media time is actually spent on your phone. 33% of all of that time is spent on TikTok. That's insane. So if you're not there, you're missing out. And if you're a brand, right, some of the most successful brands that I've seen, obviously, right, like beauty, fashion, e-com, all of those brands are if you're not on there, you really need to be on there ASAP, right? Because all of your competition is already on there. But some of the more interesting things that I've seen since I've come over to TikTok from Google is that a lot of the brands that I thought were going to be purely successful sort of in the SEM space, think like banks, healthcare, all of those sorts of brands, they are some of the most successful because again, they are finding these unique niches within the advertising landscape where some of their competition isn't. They are finding ways to move down the funnel via the partnerships with some of our best agencies, and working directly with folks like Audrey, who's going to come up here and chat to you guys a little bit about some of the tactical pieces in terms of getting started. But it's for everyone. That includes people, and that includes businesses. This is the one that we were talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Listen, I still have stock at Google, so I'm not going to tell you guys not to change, move all of our marketing dollars away from Google and invest them all into TikTok. Although if you did, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But what I will say is that really, as most of you in this room know, in an ideal world, everything plays nicely together, right? If you are advertising on Google, where you'll start to see a lot of the incremental come from is going to be from Meta and Facebook. And then as you kind of reach these saturation points, finding new ways to advertise is going to how you continue to increase that incremental profitability. And TikTok is great for all 3 of those, right? So if you think about TV, if you see an ad on TikTok and then you see it again on TV, it increases the memorability of that ad. Same thing with YouTube. You're less likely to skip it if you've been primed by seeing TikTok. And like I said, people are spending a movie's worth of time every day. And then the last piece of it is Meta. Amazing. Love Meta. I actually spend, I don't know if I should say this, but I actually spend way more time on Instagram than I do on TikTok personally. I'm a bit older, but as you know, it doesn't matter from the statistics I showed you earlier. But that's where a lot of my friends are. I just like to check up on them. But what happens is when I do spend time on TikTok and then I see an ad on Meta, it does increase, again, to your point about frequency, right? How often are you seeing this thing? How often are you remembering it? Where am I hitting those people and meeting them at those moments of purchase, of intent, of taking action?
Awesome. So I think this, bleeds perfectly into, so all brands should be on TikTok. People are on TikTok. we're talking about the overlap, embracing the overlap, seeing messaging in different apps. But I think the big question now becomes, what type of messaging is most effective on TikTok? And so we'd love to get your thoughts on that, because there's a lot of nuances there. And I know we're going to show some examples, but what do you think, just from for all the brands out there right now, how should they be thinking about positioning their brand or the messaging they should go to market with in TikTok?
Yeah, well, we can use this a really quick example of the marketing funnel, which you guys have all seen, right? So awareness, consideration, action. Obviously, these are going to be the three main areas, but depending on where you want to start, right? And obviously, we always recommend you start at the top, right? You got to fill the funnel. You got to make sure people know about your brand before you move them into considering your brand versus competitors versus ultimately getting them to take action. And on TikTok, 70% of the efficacy of the campaigns that you run on TikTok is largely determined by the creative, right? You can spend all the money you want, won't get delivery if you don't have effective creative. That's a big key differentiator between us and some of the other platforms, which we'll talk a little bit about later, as far as some of the tools that we can use to help, accelerate the creation and make sure it's best in class. But a lot of it comes down to the messaging. And really TikTok, so much of it is around authenticity. And so if you think about the top of the funnel, right? Authentic TikTok, obviously include your brand, but it's really funny stuff. You're using viral trends, sounds. There's a bunch of resources. And obviously I work on the agency team at TikTok. And so lean on Corey, lean on Trevor, lean on the rest of the direct agents teams to help surface what that best in class content look like. But it's really about sort of some of these things, showing up as a member of the community. When it comes to the consideration part, what I've seen be really successful is this edutainment, right? So it's I'm obviously keeping you entertained, but I'm sort of showing you how to do something. And we'll walk through a quick example of that. And then when it comes to the bottom of the funnel and on TikTok, it's urgency, sales, promos. There's all kinds of cool tools around this. But I think rather than me telling you about this, it might be easier to just kind of show you what some of those.
Yeah, let's show some examples.
Yeah. All right, this is from Circle. It's a
okay, y'all. Just pulled up to the big race in a big Circle box truck, ready to give away free Circle bottles. Let's go! Look at this, man. Wow, look at this. This is amazing, man. Look at these bottles. We're ready to go. We're ready to rock and roll.
You can't do that here.
Who are you?
Big Soda.
What do you mean we can't give away free Circle bottles at the race? Oh, wow. I know what I could do. I could give them away free online right here.
Anyway, right? Funny, engaging. Obviously, they talk about the brand, but they're not being overly aggressive with it. They're talking about it's a giveaway, it's a free promo. Obviously, you can tell that was extremely high produced, probably cost $2 million to film that video. No, that's the thing with TikTok. That's what makes it so, it's engaging, it's authentic, it's real, it's fun. Half of all people are using it. The way that they engage with the platform is the way that you might text your friends, right? It's hey, blah, 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 right? Send them a video. So anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm not a creative expert, but what for brands out there, maybe you see this, you're well, that's not, my brand can't be portrayed that way. It's not brand safe. There's obviously brand suitability. I think it's looking at those four core comments here. So something you can embrace in that is what is your founder story, right? It doesn't have to be shot like a beautifully produced a video. Get a tripod, have your founder put a phone up and just speak into it, right? Add some humor into their story. Why should people care about the brand? That type of user generated content, that type of natively shot. I think we all hear natively shot. A big thing Sebastian and I have talked about is it doesn't have to be just a selfie style. It just, as long as it doesn't feel overly produced and you can represent your brand properly and within that brand suitability, that's kind of what, from an awareness perspective, would meet some of that criteria for best practices.
There's nothing more that a CFO loves hearing than it doesn't need to be overly produced. That means inexpensive, cheap, affordable.
All right, so next we're going to go through an example of a consideration ad would look like.
I love this brand, by the way. I used to work with them at Google. This is not a sales pitch for them, but BlendJet, they're great.
TikTok made me buy Part 52. I saw a bunch of people using these portable blenders for smoothies, protein shakes, and other recipes, and I just had to try it out for myself. Picking a color was actually so hard because there were so many good ones to choose from, but ultimately I went with this lavender color and I got the black one for my husband. I made my favorite frozen coffee in it and I cannot believe how well it worked. It blended the ice like my big industrial blender in 30 seconds. You can take it on the go with you to work, make protein shakes at the gym, or even cocktails at the pool. The best part is that it's entirely self-cleaning. Just add a little soap and water, blend it up, rinse it out, and you're done. No more hassles with big, messy blenders.
Right. Edutainment. It's pretty entertaining, pretty educational. That's like a how-to video, right? But can be used across all across the spectrum. And again, I know the CEO there. He's a really funny guy. It's a great brand. I have two of those in my pantry. So anyway.
Yeah, but I think that, even for all of us in the audience, I don't know if you felt the same way, but when I watched that, I knew I was watching an ad because here we are today. But I was engaged in that. I don't know everybody else, but if you're somebody that loves smoothies, that would be something that would be the type of content that you would watch. And as we mentioned in the consideration before we jump into action, I'm now considering that brand. We didn't hear anything about promotional messaging, pricing of the product. It was way more entertaining, exactly with the type of content that people go to TikTok for. And that's what they just got. And now you would be thinking, and next time you're exposed to an ad that will be more following action best practices, you're more likely to convert, better conversion rates, more efficiency on the platform, better success for everybody, and hopefully more budgets for you marketers. So now we'll go through action and look at the example here.
If you are still using a boring plastic debit card, you are missing out. Cred AI is where it's at. This thing is like a debit card with superpowers. They give you this gorgeous metal card, boost your credit, allow you to access your paycheck 2 days early, and guarantee that you will never pay fees. No monthly, annual, anything. It's a total game changer. So what are you waiting for? Sign up now at Cred AI.
That was actually my fault. I was actually recording that on my computer and I dropped something. I dropped my phone on my computer while I was doing it. Anyway, that's my bad. But financial services, right? So exciting. Actually, though, right? I wanted to put that example, right? Because I think there's a lot of this misconception that, okay, I've seen the e-com versions of this, or I know that fashion and beauty and sports, they can do well. Every brand can do well. You and I have talked about plenty of examples of folks, that are working with direct agents that are already using TikTok. I think that, as marketers, it's incumbent upon us to be creative, to push the boundaries, because that's what's ultimately going to help our brands be successful.